everybody, it's Jenny J 1911, and we are here tonight with an extremely special guest. I have had a fun conversation already before we got started tonight, and so tonight we are welcoming not only all of our friends in the side chat, which I will get to you guys in just a minute. But first, I want to introduce gun websites, also known as G-Webs, to the people who are, familiar. And I think pretty much everybody is familiar with gun websites. He is, I asked earlier, I said, I know your first name's not Guns, so what is your first name? And he said, Pete. So it's good to have G-Webs on our show tonight. And so welcome to him. And also, I would like to give a shout out. We have some members in the audience tonight. We've got Slide Rack is here. And of course, Cowboy Jeff 1911, best name in the world. Reese is here. And so then we also have a couple other people who have already been chiming in. We have DJ Play Nice. Of course, G-Webs is here. He's already commented over in the side chat. Walter Bunning is here. It's great to see you, Mr. Bunning. And we are going to go ahead. Before we get started with G-Webs, I have to give a little shout out to one of my beloved subscribers. So you all know he's on here regularly, and he might chime in here in a minute. You all know Michael Dunn. And Michael Dunn has been a huge supporter of Jenny J 1911. Huge supporter. So Michael Dunn sent me a little present, and he had told me it was going to come in 2 packages, and I had to wait to get both to be able to open them. Well, I did end up getting both, and so I'm going to share with you guys what this is. Now, I am going to preface this with, it is a toy. It is a toy. It is a toy. You will see it's a toy by how tiny it is. But I have here my very own Jenny J 1911. So this is a functioning toy. And it even has this, I didn't put it in, but this adorable little slide. And it even has, if I can get them out without losing them, it even has a little tiny cartridge that goes in there. And so, yeah, so all you have to do is this actually functions, and it's pretty heavy. The slide fits in here. It's got the hammer, and it's just, this is pretty cool. The trigger, I won't pull the trigger because I don't want to get anybody mad, but really adorable. So I am going to put that back in my stand, and I just, magazine. Why did I say slide? I have to slide the magazine in. It's been a long day. I've been up since 4:00 this morning. So anyway, thank you so much to Michael Dunn. Michael Dunn, I hope you got to see it. I showed it. So he had this made. He had this made specially for me. And he said it just screamed Jenny J 1911. So thank you so much, Michael Dunn. If anybody wants to check out this company, it's called Goat Guns. Super adorable. It comes with all kinds of things. It even has like the spring, and it's got like a little tiny screwdriver and everything with it. It's kind of hard to show the whole box, but there it is. On the back, it shows you all of the working parts that comes in it. So super cool. So Michael Dunn, thank you so much. All right, so let's get to our big special guest of the evening, G-Webs. G-Webs, thank you so much for coming on our show. So G-Webs, he keeps muting himself because he's
I mute by habit. Sorry, I've been.
No, he's just waiting for the.
It's not even that loud in here today.
Oh, so G-Webs, first of all, tell me or tell us How old were you when you got into shooting, and what was the occurrence? What happened? How did you get into it?
That's an interesting one. So I've been into, I can't remember not being into guns and shooting and hunting and going with family and stuff. So pretty much forever, whenever your first memories are, first toys, right? So a long time ago, in the 70s.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you were just kind of born into it and just,
Definitely. I mean, it was just I think the World War II generation, they had them around. There was a lot of them. From my experience, a lot of them were the guns that never even left the country, in the war production. Whenever the war ended, the supply lines kind of dwindled. So there were guns that were in the crate meant to go to, inhospitable environments. So, basically good to go in Cosmoline. And you could buy those for very little money. So people would buy them. And then that's when all the Wildcat cartridges came around and people started to modify the stocks and learn about gunsmithing. And so guns were kind of a thing. They were not, there was, they were understood and there was not any concern or anything. I think there was more, just like a lot of things, there was exploration and innovation in them. So I remember just they were inexpensive. So there was a lot of collecting, a lot of respect for the countries that were involved in the wars. So I remember going to gun shops. I've always been a fan of gun shops. I think it's because I've been going to gun shops my whole life, just listening to the adults talk about guns and maybe I'm assuming now what was available from the importers or, what was being discovered or maybe what collections were being redistributed, that kind of thing. So anyway, I've been around guns my whole life, going to gun shows, well, for a long time, every weekend for big chunks of my life.
Yeah. So what's your favorite thing to shoot? Favorite gun to shoot, I should specify, not inanimate object or animate object to shoot.
I mean, that's sort of like when you're asking an old person their favorite food to eat anymore. I've shot a lot and I don't really seek out. I mean, I've done a lot of shooting, so I don't really seek stuff out. I leave the bullets to everybody else who's still looking for that. I find looking at the history, I share the community. That's what I like. I like finding channels like yours and other people that are doing projects out there that are reflections of what people are experiencing today in 2022, right? And like I say, I've been here through a lot of it. So I find more pleasure and more interest in experiencing that with everyone than participating. Every once in a while, I'll pull the trigger on a new caliber or something that's completely new or innovative. But again, I'd rather just be a fly on the wall and be a part of that experience for a lot of other people, especially when ammo is scarce and stuff.
Right.
But I think just to answer the question in a non-drawn out way, PKM, belt-fed 54R, basically a giant AK upside down, tripod-mounted, belt-fed Soviet rifle, machine gun.
Yeah.
You can get them made here in Tucson in semi-automatic, so it is possible to get them in semi-auto. Back in the day, the 54R was a fairly inexpensive caliber for a belt-fed machine gun. So even though it was expensive, it was a technically possible tripod-mounted, belt-fed, semi-auto to have my sights on. Plus, I knew people that owned real ones, so I could pull triggers on them quite a bit, fairly often. So that's probably my favorite gun to shoot.
Yeah. So have you started other people shooting? Have you influenced people to actually pick up a gun that have never shot before?
I imagine. I mean, I've got thousands and thousands of videos since 2005 and channels and websites, so I hope so. It was kind of the goal. I mean, it's an auxiliary goal, honestly. I imagine if new people want to shoot, that's up to them. The reasons for it are up to them. I want to share what I experienced for a while, and then after I was finished sharing what I could experience, I started to share the community and the history and where we're going. Who's the potential next shooting stars. So, yeah.
So what about in person? Have you had any, family members or friends that have not shot before that you've started?
See, that's tough for me too, because everybody in my family shoots or, made those decisions a long time ago. But, it's not like there's kind of lines in the sand, I suppose. There might be a cousin or something out there that doesn't shoot that I don't know or something, but most everybody's comfortable, and it isn't a political statement or anything. It's just like, kind of like driving, I guess. If you had a city family that never drove because they lived in the city and they took public transportation and they scorned the idea of people wanting to have the privilege of having a vehicle because they've never lived somewhere where it's impractical to have public transportation because it's ridiculous, right?
Mm.
Like, and then a family that's in the opposite who would think, why would you want public transportation when we all live 40 miles from each other, right? So maybe it's something like that. I've just never experienced it. I've hung out in gun shops and gun shows a lot. Except for a couple of times in my life, my occupations have revolved around the gun industry. So I'm just never outside the gun industry enough to get that opportunity.
Yeah. So, do you prefer shooting outdoors then, I'm assuming?
Well, I'm in Arizona, so yeah.
Okay.
Indoors, back in the day, you could go to indoors, and I like to explore gun shops and ranges. So I like to see new ranges and the development of them and the different, just where people put ranges is always kind of neat. But if you think about ranges being built in the 2000s and now, then they're they're basically designed to not let anybody get cancer or any kind of respiratory disease. So they're very elaborate, and it's kind of similar. They might be a little bit different, but back in the day, there was some kind of variation to go an indoor range. I don't know if you remember the movie Death Wish, right? Back in the olden days, Death Wish is this movie. It's from like the 70s, right? And it's basically a guy that gets some horrible stuff happens. He goes to Tucson, Arizona, and his friend in Tucson takes him to a shooting range. And it's sort of like an old lounge or something. There's all these couches and stuff and wood furnishings. And there's these guns and frames on the wall. They just go up to some guns that are, I guess, community-owned guns, grab them off the wall, walk over to where you would think there'd be like a bar in this room, but it's really just the shooting line. And they just start shooting at these targets that are like 15 feet from them. Because back in the day, there was just these gallery guns, right? You would have these indoor shooting galleries. So for something like that, going to an indoor range would be awesome. But when we've got Arizona to shoot against, shooting at a mountain in Arizona, that's pretty fun.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no kidding. Especially if you are a rifle shooter. It's got to be a lot more fun to be outside.
Yep. Now, getting to them might be tougher. It takes a little while, right? You have to get out of town to get to them, that kind of thing. You can get to an indoor range a little quicker usually.
Yeah. So, all right. So I want to get to, I think the big thing I really want to talk with you tonight about is the Second Amendment. I noticed that, on your channel, you do a lot of 2A stuff, which of course everybody here feels is very important. We have two recent stories that I kind of want to bring into the mix of our conversation. So, as you all know, I live in the St. Louis area. I live technically in St. Charles. And this last weekend, we had a case where a man stole a car and he went to 3 different gas stations overnight, Friday night into Saturday morning. He went into 3 different gas stations. Held each of the cashiers, female cashiers, at knife point. They ended up getting lacerations on their wrists and their neck. And he robbed 2 of the 3. On the 3rd gas station, he pulled up to the front of the gas station. He parked right in front of the doors, not really in a parking spot, but just kind of, slammed the car in park and jumped out, grabbed a backpack and ran into the Quick Trip. Well, he gets into the Quick Trip and another customer was just leaving. This is probably about 3:00 in the morning. Customer was just leaving. And that customer noticed this guy was acting strange. So he kind of watched from outside, noticed the guy, I guess, grabbed the cashier, put a knife to her neck. So this guy grabs his own gun out of his car, goes into the store, opens the door and says, "Everything good in here?" And the guy said, "I have something for you." Cashier starts screaming. And so he went to reach for something from his backpack, and the civilian hero shot the guy and killed him. So that's incident number 1. Incident number 2 was, I think everybody probably heard about this one too, in the Greenwood Mall, which is a suburb of Indianapolis. A 22-year-old, I call him kid because to me, that's really young. 22-year-old was in the mall. Another person in the mall started shooting people, killed several people. This kid actually shooed people back while he approached this gunman and shot the gunman and killed him. And so, within one weekend, we have two incidents where the good guy won. And, I feel like this all goes very heavily with Second Amendment, being able to carry. And so, it's great to see the good guy win. Of course, these are the kind of stories that who knows what kind of spin will be put on it. I know they said with the kid in the mall, well, he wasn't supposed to have a gun in the mall because the mall is a gun-free zone. Well, what about the guy that was already in there shooting everybody? So, I find no fault with him for that at all. And I don't think many people would. So, all that being said, G Webs, tell me a little bit about what you feel we can do as a shooting community. What can we do, seriously, actively do to promote the Second Amendment and promote our rights as gun carriers?
That's a good question. So as individuals, all we can do is what's within the realm of our decision making and our ability, right? And our resources, right? So acting and behaving and requiring that of others around us. So, the one apple ruining the batch means that you got to be one of them other apples to go, hey, let's lurk on this. Let's ever, let's, if it's whatever. Beyond that, then realize that there's a mechanism in place here. And this isn't the first time that any of this has happened. There's 360 something million people in this country. The people who have taken the decision to focus the magnifying glass of the media at these two incidents that are happening amongst all the other incidents that happen in a country of 350 million people are done with intent. They're feeding us this one, then they're feeding us that one. Do you think they're feeding the same information to people on the other side of this political spectrum? Of course not. They're giving them a different version of the events that take place. So being a willing participant in that is a difficult thing to realize. It's sort of the movie The Matrix, right? Understanding that you're participating in a mechanism. And that's honestly my answer, is that you have to do what's in the realm of your own decision-making abilities, which is to be, a good gun owner and a advocate and that kind of thing. And then encourage others around you. Don't tolerate, something that isn't. And then be aware that there's definitely, mechanisms happening here. And every time it's easy, and it seems like it's an obligation to talk about what they put down on the table. But just like if you went to, McDonald's and they're dropping whatever they're dropping on the table, and you wanted to go to KFC, we're in a free country, go to KFC. Might be great, and they went to a lot of trouble to put it on the table. But if you didn't ask for it, you didn't ask for it. So unless you went out and sought out these quote unquote urgent things that are being used as examples of how our rights should be determined, I question why they're putting them down as urgent examples. We have a country of 360 million people. They could be looking at a lot of important things that are going on. Does anybody know about the Medal of Honor Museum? Does anybody know the status of the I don't know, just another museum out there, the status of the person who won the spelling bee? They put these things down in front of us. There's some analogies to shaking the jar of ants. So my answer isn't going to be let's participate in the back and forth and the stuff that they present to us, but to question why they're presenting it, to realize that there's a lot of people that are involved in the conversation about our Second Amendment, the rights and the obligations and responsibilities and the freedoms that it gives us, and then to champion those who are out there who have made tremendous efforts in those projects. For example, meeting with there's a bunch of ladies right now that are in Washington D.C. that today's Tuesday. Monday morning, they were given notice that there was 12 seats at a Senate testimony, that if they went there, they could have those 12 seats. 12 ladies got in a van. They figured out that they could do it, got in a van before Tuesday, hustled 6 hours to Washington, D.C., so that they could sit in 12 seats with teal shirts on, the same color as that 1911 he gave you, in teal shirts, so that they could experience the testimony for 12 hours, say nothing, just be there, right? And then as a team, and then now they're driving home right now. Realize that there's ladies like that doing that right now. And while they're trying to feed us this, hey, let's be upset about this, so let's use this as an example of why we're always right. Let's question that, because you know that the same exact things that they're telling you, like, well, I'm not going to get into it for too long, but that's my answer. So you can only do what's available to you. Realize that, control that, own that. Don't tolerate the inadequate next to you, and then determine your own path. Don't just listen to their options and be a part of their mechanism.
Right.
That's not too crazy of a answer for you.
So I have to interrupt real quick and give a little shout out to Treetop. Treetop just donated via, I don't know, is it super chat? I never can keep those two straight. So thank you, Treetop. You are a superstar. Make sure you check out Treetop Outdoors if you haven't already.
So for people that don't know, when you do a YouTube channel, if you do like a 2 to 3 10-minute video tops, then it works with the logarithm, because most people are there to check out something and then leave, right? They're looking for what information and they're out of there. So when you have a video that's anything over, like these long conversations you're having, there's no chance that you're going to get any monetization on the video. You might get a lot of views because someone will watch 5 minutes, come back, watch 5 minutes, come back. So it'll create a lot of views, but that doesn't translate into a lot of income or anything.
Monetization.
It is cool to see people drop in super chats. She'll get that in her whenever, however, whatever level you're at. It'll come quarterly or monthly at some point. So it's much appreciated. Yeah,
it is very, very much appreciated. So G-Webs, basically, I think that we all understand that, of course, there's always an agenda. And a lot of people will just buy into that agenda without doing their own research. This is one thing I'm always telling at least my own kids and my students: do your own research. I don't care what your opinion is on something, as long as I know you have thought it out for yourself and not just buy into what one person has to say for everything. So what is, I don't know, what's one active thing that we could do? I mean, do we need to start, I don't know, who do we start voicing things to? How do we get our voice and our thoughts, our encouraging, our, pro, you
want to help some, you want your energy to be put into a direction so that it helps, right? So that it's doing something. So I think that's an awesome question. So first off, you got to understand your first thing with anything, right? Understand your resources. So where are you, right? What's your ability? How much time do you have? What's your contribution to the mix? What are you strategically to the game, right? And then, is that your location? Is it your experience on the clock? Is it the amount of time you have to give? Do you have money, right? Do you have a Rolodex? That's a contact list for the kids. Like, do you have people that you can get people in touch with? Are you in the business world? Are you in the some other world, right? No matter what it is, guess what? Unless there's a massive superstar already there, you're needed, right? So that it can't be the same answer for everybody. So the first thing is kind of figure out what you've got to offer and realistically what you can offer, because wanting to offer the world is nice, but realistically, what can you contribute? Then start looking around. You live somewhere, you have gun shops nearby, you definitely have a DC project representative. You might have ladies in the Girl in a Gun project. You might have independent firearms instructors that are nearby that could use your help with whatever it is you've got. Maybe you can do video editing. Maybe you just know how to help get links out there. You've got 15 minutes a day that you can help link around to the local firearms instructors. Maybe there's somebody building ammo. I know you got a lot of reloaders and stuff. Maybe somebody's building ammo, or doing something with 3D printing for the reloading community. And maybe by sharing their stuff, that's something that anybody can contribute. And logarithms and stuff are super powerful. You never know just like a billboard. You never know when someone's going to be distracted in the conversation or frustrated with what they're saying on the phone, and they look to their right and they see that billboard and it answers the question they've been looking for. The first time they have an opportunity, a massive sale happens. That's why they put those billboards up there. You don't expect it to happen, but you can't have that opportunity unless you've got it out there. So realistically, don't get all frustrated and think there's an easy answer. Figure out what you've got to contribute. Start to look around to where you can do something with what you've got, and it'll start to come to you. If you've done all that and you're still frustrated, go to people like me or Clover Tack or Guns and Barbecue or you, I'm sure, just anybody who's out there who's authentic and real. If you've literally done a couple of things to try and you're not getting anywhere, reach out, because maybe you're just doing something upside down or backwards and they can go, oh, here, look, unfold this, and now it's way easier, and now you're reaching out to everybody you wanted.
Yeah. So G Webs, tell me this. I hear a lot of people say that they're frustrated, that they feel discouraged, just because they feel like we're in a losing battle right now. Do you feel like
gun owners?
Yes. Do you feel that way, or do you feel more see, I feel optimistic. I don't know. I feel like things are going to get better. And people I guess are frustrated because of politics. They're frustrated with the actual physical shortage of components or ammo, or the fact that it's more and more difficult to buy a gun, or that there are more restrictions in certain places all the time. So I think that I hear a lot of discouragement from people. So do you feel like that discouragement is justified? Do you feel like we should be able to be more optimistic? Things are going to turn around and look up for people. How do you feel about that?
Well, we literally have the 50-50. We have 25 states with constitutional carry and 25 states without constitutional carry. So like you can literally be optimistic or pessimistic right now and be justified, right? So if you look at it, that there's been infringements over the last 3 or 5 decades, depending, and there's been a momentum to remove those infringements. Constitutional carry is effectively taking an eraser and saying all the things that said were infringed or prohibited have just been erased. They didn't add any law. They just took away infringements. So when you look at the what's the word, like the rate of that over the last years, there's no way to be discouraged about that rate. If you want to take any other number, let's say the number of states with just concealed carry, that was a number. That was like 8 in the 90s, right? And then things started to change, and then as people started to carry, then people started to say, well, if they can carry, why can't we carry? And then they were like, well, I guess if everybody's carrying, then we shouldn't be concerned about people carrying. Those millions of people that carried hours before they carried did not carry a gun their entire lives. And they would have probably said something to the effect of, people shouldn't carry guns around. And now we're living in a world where pistol braces are precedent, right? Like hunting with suppressors is all but like a couple of states. Ownership of suppressors is only restricted in like 9 states. Anybody who suggests that we're on a decline is not paying attention, or just not, has not done the research. Anybody who's been alive longer than, paying attention since the 90s, I guess, or 80s really, knows that we live in a completely different world with way less infringements. Like there are no infringements compared to what there was when you watch Miami Vice, right? So as far as laws and stuff, now as far as some of the other stuff you mentioned there, no, there's no reason to be pessimistic at all. In fact, quite the opposite. As soon as you start to actually look around, follow those steps, figure out what resources you got, so you're not thinking like, oh, I wish I was this or that and I could help, because that's unrealistic. So figure out what you can do, right? And start looking for where you can apply. And guess what you're going to discover? A whole bunch of stuff that's happening that no one's feeding to you. If somebody's job is to get your attention every single day, they're not going to talk about the intricacies of how it's working. They're going to talk about the failure. Look at this crack. Look at how this could be bad, maybe. Or, look at this drip. This might be a flood one day.
Yeah. Well, exactly. And, also I do think that, of course, I've always been a big believer that, The media, plays a huge part in what we hear, of course. And what sells? Does happiness and rainbows and sunshine, does that sell, or does fear sell? And so I feel like, a lot of people unfortunately might buy into the fear that is propagated by the media. And, so that might be one thing. We need to stop doing that.
Well, and as gun owners too, like I guess let's say you're a gun owner, like you have to come from somewhere. So let's say you decided to buy a gun as an adult. So I'm guessing most people decided to buy some kind of a defensive gun, handgun, shotgun, maybe AR, right? They got in somewhere. And then they either bought that one, they didn't like it that much, and they put in the closet or got rid of it, in which case they're not listening to us. Or they dug it and they kept with it, and then now they're kind of more interested, maybe, right? And then they're watching us, maybe. But then I bet you most of them were like, that was pretty cool. Now I'm not scared of guns anymore. So let's get a couple more, right? I can't use this gun for hunting, and I can't use that for going to the competition. So now you got 3 or 4 guns, right? So just like a steak knife and a butter knife and a knife for the garden or something, you need more than one tool for different things you want to accomplish. So
Right.
just like that, somewhere in there, they're going to figure out, oh, ammo. Like, oh, you can buy different kinds of ammo. Like, oh, there's different calibers. Like all those questions come up. Somewhere in there you go, oh, reloading. And then where you make the determination if you're going to reload or not. People like you and the channels that hang out with your shows and stuff are the people that help others determine if they're going to get into that whole realm, right? Maybe, I'd like to see people get back to gun shows, right? But gun shows is a whole nother thing, collecting and sharing and, modifying all this neat stuff that happened at gun shows back in the day when they weren't just bulk ammo sales situations like they had been under. You mentioned scarcity before, and scarcity is something that we're always going to deal with. We always have dealt with. It's just that we got really fat and lazy after the world wars, which gave us projectiles for days and powders for decades. Right. So we've been modifying and playing with Cold War stockpiles forever. And once that stuff started to dwindle, we depended on what the factories can produce. And it's tough to, like one of the shortages was when Europe, they allowed 22 again. So all of a sudden people in Europe could buy 22 long rifle. I think that was like 2014 or 12 or something back then. And that was one of the reasons there was a big shortage on 22. So these things are going to hit us every once in a while. And I guess what I was getting at is as you experience guns, you get into it and you start to get deeper and deeper. Somewhere in there, your rights come up. What do you mean I can't buy that? Like, oh, if I did that, I'd be in trouble. Like most people don't realize, oh, if you chop that stock off, or you want to buy that, you can't put it on that gun. Why? Oh, well, because then you'll go to jail. What? I didn't know that there's that whole thing. So now they learn about 2A. And what does 2A mean to somebody? Does it mean just the Second Amendment? Is it some kind of weird 3%, or who knows what people are thinking? So that's what I'm long way of saying that. How does somebody get into it is, or when are they going to do for it, and what do they think about it is how they get introduced to it. If they get introduced to 2A like we did back in the day, it was like scholars talking about the blah 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 of history of the English Commonwealth, and it was like more of like that angle. Until Heller, it was all just blah blah blah. We have this tradition of independence that comes from the king and stuff. So nobody was interested in listening to 2A talk. I mean, that certainly wouldn't. I don't think it would spark too many people's interest in getting active or anything.
Mm-hmm. I want to give a little shout out. Treetop just donated another $5 and is going to bed. So he says, make sure to watch Trick Shot Thursday. So yeah, everybody make sure you tune in. Jenny J doesn't have a show on Thursday nights either. So make sure you tune in and watch Trick Shot Thursday. So, all right. So I want to throw it out to Chatland over here. If anybody has a question or a thought that they want G-Webs to, to delve into, throw it down out there. G-Webs, if you see something that needs to be brought up, I'm kind of scrolling back through here.
One of your multi-part questions there was the shortage thing, and I think that's something else that it's tough. You have to live through a few shortages, right? You have to, like Y2K. Most people probably weren't, if they were even alive, they weren't paying attention the way some of us were in Y2K. So right. I mean, some of us are sitting on ammo from Y2K. Like, so a lot of shortages, a lot of concerns, and a lot of ups and downs of ammo prices happened since then. But Y2K wasn't even the first one. There was stuff before that that got people concerned. And if you think of the movie Survivors with Robin Williams and everybody, that's, what's the difference between that and a prepper today? I mean, that kind of stuff has existed since the 70s. They've been playing off of that idea of like, hey, if you want to be, ready for any potential future or a lot of negative potential futures, then let's mock you and make fun of you and stuff. I mean, that's been around. That concept has been around for a long time. Just takes different names.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Geez, I remember Y2K. Actually, I was working in a bank, and when the year 2000 rolled around, and we were all, the big scary thing was, will the computers roll up to the year 2000? I mean, I remember everybody being like, store up water and store up food and make sure that you can survive, because the whole world is just going to stop turning, and kind of crazy. But again, it's that buying into the fear thing, and I don't know.
There was serious concern, though. That's the thing. People don't realize, but 1999 had a 19 in front of it. So computers were built in like the 30s and 50s and stuff. So they just never even thought about rolling over to 2. So some of the core stuff in computers like never had a 2 in it. So they just didn't know if it could even handle that digit. It turned out it could, but hindsight is one thing. But the thing is, Y2K happened in the people from World War II who had lived through the shortages, and then their kids, and then us, their grandkids. They were still our grandparents. Like, they were young. They were in their 50s or something. So when Y2K happened, they just casually prepped in a way that would make people today, their jaws drop, because what my grandma casually prepped in the basement could fill like 7 YouTube videos. You know what I mean? Like, they just knew how to can everything and do it because they lived through the war, and she wasn't about to have no toilet paper again, or no, pickles or whatever it was. So when Y2K happened, all of us, the grandkids, were like, oh, that's how I prep. That's how you prep, I guess. We were familiar with the Cold War. It was a concept. Now you fast forward to now, and all the stress of the last couple of years, and everybody's concerned about, what might happen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean? It's just a different group of people. So they're able to play on us. That's why I say we're kind of a mechanism as a population, just any group of people, right? As something gets popular and people are aware, the traditions get passed on. And then if there's some kind of gap, then all the traditions have to be relearned, and everything, all the hard lessons have to be learned. And in the big picture, they can play on it. They play with us. They make money every time they mess with us like this. So that's one of those things where be concerned, prep, but don't run around worrying about it and getting everybody upset and everything. Just do it well. Make sure your kids know how. Move on.
Yeah.
And, along with everything, 2A and everything else, I guess I'm saying,
Right.
Noting, have a lot of ammo, but don't make a big thing about it.
Yeah. Michael Dunn, thank you. Thank you for your contribution, Michael Dunn. Michael Dunn's always such a great supporter, as we can see from this adorable little thing. So yeah, and honestly, like, think about back even G-Webs to, the whole COVID thing. Everybody freaked out. And what did they go buy? Because they had to stockpile something. They bought Lysol wipes and toilet paper, right?
Kind of reflex. And it was also that, oh, they're buying it, I better buy it. And then it's gone, I better buy it, right? It's just one of those things. And the supply chain wasn't ready. So
yeah.
Will it ever happen again? That's the question mark, right? It'll be something else. I mean, something else will get them, but I doubt the toilet paper industry is ever going to let that happen again. I'm sure they've come up with strategies, right?
Yeah. But if we think about supply and demand, if the supply is lower and the demand is higher, they can charge more and they make more money on it. So I don't know. So I'm just going back through the some of the comments here, trying to catch up. I always get kind of behind on my comments, and Michael Dunn says, just wait until the power grid goes out when everyone buys their toy cars. Electric will never hold. Yeah. Michael Dunn, you're not going to buy an electric car, I take it? I'm not either.
Well, they got these giant fans, but what if there were tiny little fans? Like, they took the fans out of a computer case, little 3-inch fans. And what if you had a fence, instead of having just the holes in the fence, you put a bunch of those little fans in there, they plug in, And what if now there's power for a scooter out of that, you know, and everybody just plugs into their fence at work or at school? So the
There you go.
concept of electric might be the other side's thing, but I don't give nobody nothing. The first cars were electric. Electric is a United States, what do you call it, invention. Like, we can own that. We don't have to give it to the other side just because they use it as a weapon.
Yeah,
I
that's
live
true.
in Arizona. Almost every house here has solar on the roof. So it might
Yeah.
not work for everywhere, but when you have buildings made out of solar and the roofs made out of plants and stuff, like, let the city people have electric. What are you worried about?
Yeah. So, all right. So I want to change tracks a little bit on you here, G Webs. We had a little bit of a discussion beforehand. Um, so tell me, what is your favorite thing about having your YouTube channel?
Well, that's an interesting question. I've had it since 2009, right? So for me, I had it originally, you know, have you ever taken the wooden part off of an AK's upper handguard by any
No,
chance? Okay. You know what I'm talking about? Do you have an AK?
I don't know.
Okay. So on an
No.
AK, it's a simplistic gun made by the Soviets and everything. It was made pretty crudely. It's a lot of pressed metal that's formed around, and then a couple of pieces of wood on the original ones. And there's the best way to describe it is if you hold the one piece in your hand, you're trying to get the wood part off of it. You hold the one piece in your hand and you twist the wood as if you were throttling a motorcycle. You twist, you kind of rotate it around. And
Okay.
I've said that a million times, and people were like, huh? Right. So I made this really crude 30-second thing on a 1 megapixel digital phone where I, held the thing and I twisted it. And then it was like, oh, okay, okay. And then that lets you know how to get the wood off of there. Because otherwise it seems like it's some kind of puzzle, right?
Mhm.
Um, so that was my first video, only because it used to cost us money to put these things. I'm called gun websites because we had a whole bunch of gun related websites. And when we try to put video on them, host them ourselves, it was cost a lot of money back in the days, the old fashioned slow internet. So YouTube came along and just let us put videos there. We were like, hey, thank you. And,
Yeah.
we were on the forums mostly. So having the YouTube channel was sort of um, a useful utility online for a couple of years, and then the YouTube community started. So you asked, what is my favorite thing about having the YouTube channel is since 2009, being part of the YouTube, well, the online video chat conversation that's been happening since then. It started out with the videos and being able to do video responses, and then letting some of us create channels that could accumulate viewers, and then really quickly into these live chats like we have here. Well, I'm sure you've had larger chats with like 10 people in it or whatever. So having the conversations, well, this platform, this StreamYard thing that we're using lets you have up to like 12 or 10 or something. But
Yeah.
that element brought to the internet what pen pals and what the old forums and what going to matches. You'd go to a gun show. It was like going to a concert out of state. You'd go to a gun show. It was like going to a sporting event out of state. It's where you got to meet people that were interested in the thing you're interested in from other parts of the country. And that was difficult. That cost a lot of money and time back in the day. And you met only the most dedicated, devoted people back then. And that created a kind of animosity and for collecting, at least, collectors weren't going to just trade everything because they only met each other once a year and they wanted the same stuff. There was scarcity. Now with the internet and the lack of scarcity and opening up things with internationally and being able to share with YouTube is sharing conversations live like this, but then sharing links and videos. And then I'm going to go make a video tomorrow to expand on a thing we talked about today. And then just businesses have been built here. The internet. I can remember when you'd go to SHOT Show and bring out a camera, you had to literally have a piece of paper that was signed by everybody in the picture. If there was somebody walking by, they had to be sign this picture and have a waiver.
Mhm.
And YouTube changed that to where now there's literally the most expensive properties in the firearms community are the booths at SHOT Show, and they leave a 12 by 12 section devoted to the people showing up with their telephones to do YouTube videos. So YouTube, being able to be part of that is the best part of the YouTube channel.
Right. Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I think that, it also makes, for me anyway, it makes the world feel a little bit smaller. I'm fairly new into the shooting community, and it's just been, I have felt so embraced by everybody in the community. whether it's when I go into one of our local gun stores or reloading shop or going down to NRA, I got to meet a couple people down there. Just, it doesn't matter where I go. It seems like this community it gets bigger and the world gets smaller all at the same time. And, having everybody just support each other. I think, you mentioned people being able to have the chat ability. And that's my favorite part of having these lives, is because I get to, I watch all of my viewers and my subscribers over here in the side chat, and the chat just, keeps going and going, and it just blows up every single time because they're talking to each other. I've seen people give advice to each other and, encouragement to each other. And it's just such a great community. There is definitely no other community like the gun community. So it's just, really cool to get to be part of that. And, Cowboy Jeff says we're streaming to millions of 10 people.
Well,
So,
we're streaming to the future. So if you've ever watched a black and white movie or whatever, the AIs of the future are going to be combing through everything we're saying here, every chat that you make. And that's the black and white movie that the future period is going to be using as an indication of what happened in 2022. And in the future, they're definitely going to be able to absorb more info. So this will literally be like we're representing the present to the future. So yeah, we're doing this and having some fun, but there's a lot more to it. We're also creating content that the political strategists are using as intel. So our conversations, what we decide to talk about, what we decide to tolerate, what we decide to focus on, what we spend our limited time on this planet together focused on, if it's determined by them or if it's determined by what we choose to focus it on, they're using that too. So we're having a lot of fun, but we are determining the future in these chats. People will blow that off, but we are determining the future in these chats.
Right. Yeah. And I just highlighted Patriot in the Dark said instant sharing of information, not like having to read it in a magazine a month after it happened like it used to be. That's very true. I mean, people are so much more transparent because they can be. And not only is there the transparency, but the instant sharing of information. I mean, I got a gift in the mail from a subscriber, and I just got that at about 5:00 tonight. And now within a couple of hours, you all know what I got in my mail today. It's such an instant sharing of information, and it's kind of scary, but it's also it's also cool because it, like I said, it makes the world feel a lot smaller. We're able to make those connections a lot faster and easier too. So G-Webs, okay, where would you like to see the shooting community go from here? I know that seems really broad, but I'm gonna let you decipher that the way you want to.
I'm super optimistic. So I don't really see it failing because it hasn't failed. I mean, just show me where it's failed. Show me where we've stumbled and taken a knee and died. Like, it hasn't happened. In fact, all we do is get more resilient and take bigger strides and win more. So where are we going as a community? I believe that, well, there's a couple of routes to get there, but we'll have no NFA, and the lack of the NFA will prove that the foundational right of individual rights are worthwhile and that people aren't truly out to get each other or hurt each other. And when you have the lack of the NFA, you have the lack of any kind of organized crime, and you have a lot more transparency in government to get you to there. So that's where I see it. And then I see a lot of innovation because the NFA is stifling a lot of things. We have the greatest generation, is that what it is? Or the boomers, whoever they are, our parents are getting older, and they're the massive generation. As they get older, and they're on medications and they have their incomes and they're doing whatever they're doing, trying to be active, they have a right to have firearms that aren't overly complicated or heavy. So the AOW laws and the laws that stifle innovation on ammunition and weights of firearms and things like that should all be gone, so that the elderly and the immobile and those that are infirmed are able to defend themselves with something like, who knows what, little plastic things that can get off of me in a lethal way so that criminals effectively leave those folks alone, right? So that's something that the NFA can do. Belt-fed, firearms is going to lead to more kind of competitions and fun kind of recreational shoots, activities for the rest of the world who has infringements to come here to the United States to participate in. And I think that that's going to lead to something like ceramic projectiles, something that can be made out of sand inexpensively so that it can be shot, at a hill or at a target or whatever. Everything doesn't have to be ultimately effective. As long as we can get it cost effective, then that leads us to fund new materials for barrels and stuff. But we see people aren't paying, I don't know if people pay attention to places like Las Vegas with all the recreational machine gun opportunities in Vegas. The guns and the gunsmithing that happens to make those guns shoot as many rounds as they do, I mean, exponentially more than they were ever designed to shoot. There's technology coming out of Las Vegas that's insane. And I would like to see the removal of the NFA, or when the removal of the NFA happens, I'd like to see what Vegas is going to come up with, because they got a lot of sand and they got a lot of people who travel there to shoot machine guns. And when you get rid of a lot of those infringements, that's going to get real fun. And then you get cities trying to outdo themselves for recreational firearms experiences, gun tree clubs and weekend events and helicopters and roller coasters with machine guns. Why are we limiting ourselves?
Mm-hmm. Boy, just think what SHOT Show is going to be like, right?
Heck yeah, exactly. Everybody wants to go to SHOT Show, just put a glass roof on it, let SHOT Show happen and give people the glass roof spectator seats, let them watch everything, and then just, 16 feet above the rest of us.
Absolutely. Yeah, no kidding. So, okay, Smeggy42 wants me to ask you why 9mm is the best caliber.
It isn't. So I always use 9mm example. We have a lot of arguments, right, in the community. Whether or not this gun is right. We feel like pistol caliber carbines, if Milsurp is better than bolt actions, I don't know, whatever little bickering we do. While sometimes there's important stuff happening. Like we realize that the assault weapons ban is being discussed tomorrow in Senate, in the House of Representatives committee. So we'll sit around bickering sometimes because it's stress relief. We have a right to, we're entitled to, right? We're free to. But at the same time, liberty requires eternal vigilance. So if we want volunteer fire departments instead of obligational, like being drafted into some fire department, right, then we need to jump in and fight when we need to. So instead of living through endless bickering about grip angles and whether or not you need a red dot and all these other debates, I use 9mm as my sacrificial token. Because I hate 9mm for one. Back in my day, 9mm is when when the 9mm started taking over the gun shows and the gun shops, is when the world was changing from guns being interesting and faceted to being strictly for personal defense. And that is a myopic view that's detrimental to the community and our culture. And while it was profitable, and a lot of people never get past it. I need a gun because I'm scared. I buy my gun. I was told to get 9mm. I'm done. I mean, that's just one facet of it. So because it's such a lame caliber, I use it as my token for all the bickering that we do. So anytime there's anything going on, I'll usually try to say, let's just blame it on 9mm and move on. Like, realize that you're bickering about something that they want us to bicker about because 16 other things are happening right now. And what we're not doing is getting together. And all that happens is once you get together, right, and once you are aware of each other, once you're playing zone, once you've got a two-way community that's capable of understanding what everybody's doing, it's very difficult for anybody to sneak anything through. And then we all go back to having fun. It's just that we've never taken the time with the new internet and the new resources that we have, with the NRA in decline and the other state or the national level 3-letter organizations supposedly taking up the reins. We have the opportunity to figure out infrastructures and methods to hack 2A, like logarithms and ways to work together as individuals, where we all know the methodology and the systems that prevent the antis from using us as a mechanism. And that's where I use 9mm to say, wake up. We could be talking about something interesting with our finite amount of time we have on the internet. If you really think that the internet's going away, that all civilization is about to end, then why are we talking about if 9mm is more effective than 45 on some guy's video?
True.
So that's why he's asking me that, probably so I could say all that.
Yeah. He was baiting you, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would guess that's definitely not been the first time, nor will it be the
No,
last time.
and the thing is, you can literally walk into any conversation and say 9mm sucks, and and it'll distract everybody, and that's hopefully gonna, the same way that somebody might, try to educate you by bugging you, like, hey, you know what, you can be easily bugged, like,
It's the squirrel.
right, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and we do have a conversation happening over here about Glocks now in the side chat.
It'll happen. It's inevitable. And like I say, it's not that it's a bad thing. It's just that if we want to be volunteer fire department, volunteer firemen instead of some kind of conscripts, then every once in a while we got to realize there's some keywords, some times when we know when to jump up and react. And once we do that about 100 times, they'll figure out like, oh, these people are way too organized. We're never going to get anything past them. And then they'll leave us alone like they did in 94. It's just that, they need to be kind of educated that we're working together.
Right. Exactly. So, okay. So G-Webs, we're closing in on our hour. We're up at 56 minutes, and these guys are always bullying me to do 2 hours, which I don't do ever. I've never done 2 hours. So we get close to it on Friday nights sometimes, but we're going to wrap up our show. So G-Webs, what kind of imparting wisdom or advice would you like to leave us with as we close up?
Right on. Well, I've watched your show a few times and I enjoy what you're doing, but I don't think I know most of the people. I don't know if it's because they're from the reloading community or just from other places that don't frequent the chats I do. So, and then of course I have no idea who might be watching this in the future. So I usually like to just encourage people to participate. If you feel at all the urge, participation can be from leaving comments and, using the likes or the thumbs or the hearts or whatever that is. That's your interaction with the internet. We're not on television or radio where all we can do is absorb. We can interact, and you can do videos and you can have a channel and you can do all kinds of cool stuff. And there's satisfaction there. But if you're not interested in all that, value what you're doing, because the gun community is all of us, right? So use the tools, use the ones that you want to. You don't have to. You don't use the ones you don't. I don't use Facebook at all, right? Like I understand people that don't want to use stuff, but the ones that you do enjoy, use those tools. Now, if you really want to do more than participate with people like, that are authentic, that you appreciate. And I think I'm going to steal this from a Clover tack, Clover. When you're looking at a wall or something, there's the bricks or the boulders or the rocks or whatever that's filling up a lot of the wall, but half of that wall, and then probably the most important part, is the mortar between, right? The thing that holds everything together. So as individuals, right, our voices, our participation is the mortar that holds all the different entities, channels, individuals, campaigns, projects, people, organizations, right? All that together. It also becomes the thing that's impenetrable for the antis. So just value your voice and participate.
Right. And I think that
opportunity to jump on. I don't know if I'm.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people, it seems to me in the gun community, a lot of people we're all by nature a little bit more reserved and quiet with our opinions. And so, there's nothing wrong with being quiet, but be active, right? I mean, be active in whatever it is you're choosing to do, be active. So,
well, heck yeah. And I guess I'm thinking online, but in real life, that's where we all really shine, because then we're having interactions with our friends, family, church, work, school, teams, like where people waiting in line at some place that we're waiting in line for, right? Like we're interacting with people all over the place, and just being aware and able and having some intent, and someone's having a crazy conversation in front of you, just maybe sometimes a weird eye, like a what kind of eye movement is enough to let the one person know you're not crazy. This person's wrong, right? Like sometimes that's all it takes to encourage somebody to go, yeah, right. And maybe it's having a shirt on or something, or maybe it's just a little thing. So yeah, out there being just aware and having some intent in real life, that's how we win. And that's how we've won. I mean, that's why I'm fairly optimistic, is because I lived a long time watching a lot of people with a lot of reasons to tear it all down. not be able to. And it's not because one thing was stopping them. It's because our tendency is to be cool to each other, and we all like each other. We pretty much all love each other unless we've been scorned by somebody. So
Yeah.
being online and learning about the other communities and the other facets of guns, all I've ever seen is people go, wow, I never knew. This is awesome. I never knew we were so large or diverse or big or growing or whatever.
Well, and I think too, it's human nature to feel safe in numbers, right? And so the more active we are, the more numerous we realize we are. And that gives us a little more encouragement to use our voice or to use our actions to promote this.
Oh yeah, and I think there's definitely, we know that there's either intentional, accidental, intent, whatever. But there's been instances of them making it difficult for us to understand what each others are thinking or getting the full feedback from each other. So yeah, that's definitely worth participating in feedback and conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately for Michael Dunn, he says he doesn't like people or crowds. So I don't know what to tell you, Michael.
Not everybody needs to. That's what the internet's awesome for too. Brings people around. And
Yeah, that's true. See, like, I've told my viewers before that when I'm doing these, especially when I go solo and I do a live, I'm basically just talking to myself. Like, I have no idea who's out there listening, who's going to be watching in the future. And, people are chiming in, commenting in the chat box, but it's very, still doesn't feel real to me. It feels like it's just me talking to myself. So, yeah, it is kind of, with the internet, you don't have to feel like you're out in the midst of a lot of people. So I think a lot of people do have the ability to hide behind their screen and say things they wouldn't ordinarily say.
it's not always bad though, because sometimes people would be just too timid or shy, right? And now they're
Right.
able to. So it
Yeah.
empowers.
Yep, exactly. All right. Well, G Webs, thank you so much for giving us your time tonight. And I know we really all appreciate you being here.
Yeah, really. Thanks for the reaching out. Sorry that it took so long. I mentioned it on my Instagram, but for everybody might know over here. But yeah, you contacted me like in May or something, and it went into my one folder on Instagram. And I'm not that good at Instagram, I guess. I was in there looking for something else, and I'm like, "What is this? Oh no!" So yeah, thanks for the invite. And yeah, I've been watching your project and your shows. I don't watch every single one, but when I watch, it's interesting. And
Thank you.
yeah, I definitely appreciate what you're putting out there and the group out there that's encouraging you. It's awesome.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
a lot of stuff come and go. So yeah, this
Yeah.
is neat. You've got a cool project on.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. And, I have an amazing group that has just banded behind me and supported me just from the beginning. I mean, I just started this in February. So, it's just been amazing to see how everybody has banded together and lifted me up and encouraged me and helped me get this going. So,
Can I just say, I guess one more thing for the people that are pessimistic, right?
Yeah.
We're probably all old enough to had to walk to the phone when it rang, and cords and all that, and then cordless phones were a big deal. Only certain people had them, and then they became nothing, and then there's cell phones, and now there's smartphones. And then we know that the kids that are voting today have never lived life without a smartphone, like smartphone period and on, right? Amazon. So think about it this way. That's crazy, and it gets people frustrated sometimes. Starting 5 years ago, 10 years ago, every little girl that's out there watching YouTube has Janie J 1911 to look up to as a role model. Well, there was no such thing 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 2 years ago. So thank you for participating and being a part of the diverse community that we are. And like I say, think about what's going to happen, because you're a representative of a whole bunch of people that are valuing your voice and participating, right? And think about what the future is going to be. How could that possibly be bad? It's going to be so awesome. I can't even imagine. Plus, they're going to have like holographic phones or something, right?
It's hard telling. I mean, seriously, whoever would have thought that, like you said, I can remember being on the phone at 2:00 in the morning with the cord wrapped around underneath the door so that my mom wouldn't get up and see me, and she still knew anyway. So yeah, times have definitely changed.
We adapt to all that, and it always seems like it's crazy. It's pendulums. It always looks like it's crazy, and then it swings the other way, and you get comfortable, and then it's like, oh, wait a minute, it's not comfortable anymore. Oh, no, and then it's the other way, and then
Yeah,
Cycle.
exactly. Yeah. Well,
Mm,
all
thanks,
right.
bud. Thanks again.
We are gonna wrap up, and thank you so much to everybody. I had lots of names pop on here. I didn't get a chance to give everybody a shout out, but thank you to everybody that's been here. Critter, I'm glad to see you showed up. Hopefully you got your dog out. And Brian's custom canvas is here too. So thank you, everybody. Make sure you hit the like button on this video and also share the channel with your friends and family. Don't forget, we're doing our 5,000 subscriber drawing giveaway thing for the Dylan Press. And, as soon as we get to the 5,000 mark, one of you is probably going to be walking home with a press. So that'd be pretty cool. And I can't wait to give it to somebody. So thank you, G-Webs. Thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in. G-Webs, I'll catch you on the other side of this. And I look forward to talking to you all again soon.